Texas has not elected a statewide Democrat in more than 30 years. What do you think has changed, and why do you think that you can win?
Well, I think Texans across the political spectrum, Democrats, independents, and Republicans, are fed up with the extremism and the corruption in our government. They see how Ken Paxton, one of the most corrupt politicians in our state, has been selling us out for years, for decades, has been rigging this economic system against all of us. It's why Texans can't afford anything. It's why Texans can't get ahead, no matter how hard they work, no matter how much they save. And so what you're seeing is Texans coming together, not as Democrats or independents or Republicans, but as neighbors to defeat the most corrupt politician in our state, to elect a servant leader. I have 4 terms in the state house where I brought both parties together to lower the cost of housing, to lower the cost of childcare, to lower the cost of prescription drugs, including insulin. And now we're going to come together to take on this rigged system, to take on this corruption, to start to get this economy back on track.
You mentioned bringing people together. Right now, there are a handful of recent polls that have shown you slightly edging out Paxton. How does that make you feel heading into November?
Well, the only poll that matters is on election day. And so I'm not looking at polls. I am focused on the needs of Texans, because that's how we're going to win this race. If we show up in communities across the state, if we listen to Texans, if we have honest conversations about our struggles, about our hopes and our dreams, that's how we win. Polls aren't going to win this thing for us. It is going to be building a real connection with folks across the state. It's going to be bringing people together across all these manufactured divisions. It's going to be by cultivating hope that we can actually change things. I know it's easy to give in to hopelessness these days. It's easy to give in to cynicism, but things are possible if we come together and we take on this broken system.
At this point, what group of voters would you say that you still need to convince to come onto your side?
Well, I think we got to keep showing up everywhere. We got to keep speaking to the needs of Texans across the state, across the political spectrum. And a lot of voters feel disillusioned with politics right now. They feel like nothing can change because crooked politicians like Ken Paxton have been in office for decades. Ken Paxton has been in office since I was in middle school, and our problems have only gotten worse. Things are only getting more expensive. Our pay is not going up. There aren't more job opportunities than there used to be. And that means things need to change. And it's why we are speaking to these issues. It's why we're mobilizing Texans. It's why we're bringing folks together across all these divisions so that we can take on the corruption that Ken Paxton embodies, and we can transform this broken political system.
I spoke to Paxton here recently. He was in town for a rally last week. He told me that voters don't know you, and if they do get to know your policies, get educated on your policies and your values, that they would not support you. What's your response to that?
Well, I'm out there educating voters on my record in the state legislature, on the policies that I've passed through both chambers. Again, Republicans control the state legislature. They control the governor's mansion. The only way that I was able to pass 60 bills was with support from my Republican colleagues. They were bills that cut property taxes for small businesses, that lowered the cost of housing, that improved the quality of early childhood education, that capped the cost of insulin. And that's exactly what people are looking for in their next U.S. senator. Ken Paxton has a track record of using his public office to enrich himself. That's why his fellow Republicans impeached him, tried to kick him out of office, because he is corrupt. And it's why we need to come together to defeat him and elect someone who has a track record of actually lowering our costs and getting this economy back on track.
You mentioned your time in the state legislature. Paxton has also been comparing your current policy positions to, your voting record in the Texas legislature. So, especially when it comes to tax cuts. So, can you address the discrepancies there?
Yeah, this is what Ken Paxton does. He distracts from his corruption by spreading baseless lies. I I worked with Republicans to pass the largest property tax cut in Texas history. I passed a bill that cut property taxes for small businesses across the state. And so my track record on cutting taxes is very clear. Ken Paxton and his billionaire mega donors are going to try to spread all kind of lies about me. They're going to air all kind of TV ads because that's the only way that they can hold on to power. It's the only way they can keep the gravy train running. It's the only way they can keep lining their pockets at our expense is if they tell lies about me. But if Ken Paxton is going to tell lies about me, I'm going to tell truths about him. And that means talking about his record of self-enrichment, of self-dealing, of fraud and corruption. And so I look forward to this contest where we compare our track records, because my track record is serving the people of Texas. Ken Paxton's track record is serving himself.
Why is it important for you to highlight that, as in the past couple of weeks, you and Paxton have laid out your economic plan?
Yeah, because you shouldn't trust what a politician says. You should trust what a politician does. 100 days before Election Day, Ken Paxton suddenly discovered affordability. It's like a word he learned that morning on Duolingo. Look at what he's spent his time doing for decades. Ken Paxton has been in office since I was in middle school, and he has not worked on affordability. He's not worked to lower our costs. He's not worked to build an economy where working people can get ahead. He's only worked to enrich himself. He now owns 15 homes. He is a multimillionaire on a government salary. You just talked about some of the stories that just came out this week about his self-enrichment. He has made millions off that cell phone tower at a hospital where he serves on the board. So again, this is using his public office to enrich himself at our expense. And it's why we can't get ahead. It's why we can't afford anything. It's why this economy doesn't work for us anymore. And the only way we're going to fix that is if we come together, Texans all across the board, Democrats, independents, Republicans, and defeat the most corrupt politician in our state and defeat this entire corrupt system.
You've accused Paxton of voter fraud when it comes to reportedly using an address that his estranged wife said that he had not lived in for a couple of years. But a recent report from ProPublica came out saying that you had voted in 5 elections using your parents' address. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, this is Ken Paxton's playbook. It's division and distraction. And Ken Paxton, who has made an entire political persona off chasing fake voter fraud across the state, was found to have illegally voted in 6 elections in a row. He has been committing voter fraud himself the entire time that he was accusing others of voter fraud. It is hypocrisy of the highest order. And then suddenly Ken Paxton is turning around and accusing me of voter fraud, which is baseless. It is not rooted in fact. And so this is what people are tired of. They're tired of Ken Paxton's distractions so that we're not talking about his crimes. And I refuse to give in to that. We're going to keep holding his feet to the fire. We're going to keep prosecuting the case against the most corrupt politician in our state.
So are you saying that you did not use your parents' address in those 5 elections?
I'm saying I followed all of our election laws in Texas and did not commit voter fraud.
What's the main thing that you want voters to know heading into this final stretch?
Yeah, we just rolled out our new vision for our economy. We used to have the strongest, largest middle class in the world, and that middle class has been disappearing. It is too expensive to own a home. It's too expensive to start a family. It's too expensive to start a small business. It's too expensive to retire comfortably. And so we are talking about how we can build a new American dream. And that means cutting taxes for small businesses. It means raising the minimum wage and expanding overtime pay. It means reversing the tax cuts for the top 1% in the big ugly bill and giving that $1 trillion to the middle class in the form of a cost of living tax cut. That is the kind of vision that can help people start to get ahead. That's the kind of vision that can ensure every Texan can fulfill their God-given potential. And that's what I'm going to keep focused on in the weeks and months ahead as we build this big tent of Texans across the state, across the political spectrum, to defeat the most corrupt politician in Texas history.
Many have said that you've been leaning into more, progressive populist messaging. Do you believe that that will hurt you heading into Election Day with, again, Texas voters?
Well, as I say often on the campaign trail, the real fight in this country is not left versus right. It's top versus bottom. All of us are getting screwed, whether you're a little more progressive or a little more conservative. None of us can afford groceries or gas or utilities or healthcare. And so it's time for us to come together as working people, as Texans who work for a living, to take on the billionaires who run this country, who run this economy, and their top puppet, Ken Paxton.